All right, where are those plans? Oh yeah, here we go. All right, now that I have my plans, my architectural and engineering scales, we can head back to the other office and take a look at some drawings. All right, these plans here are for the Glendive Water Resource and Recovery Facility, or in other words, the sewer treatment plant. They were provided to us by Great West Engineering out of Helena, Montana. And like I say, this was everything said and done close to $20 million worth of work. Now with that, if you can see here, what I have out here are the civil drawings, as we looked at previously in our talking about drawings and what each letter and symbol mean down here. So these are the civils, and this is page 9 of 195 sheets in this plan set. So a plan set is a complete set of drawings and plans for a complete project. So there's 195 of these 24 inches by 36 inch sheets of paper, and they're pretty much chock full of information. So let's kind of just get into this and see what a few of these mean. So on this first page, C1 of the civils, we can see things like it gives us a legend, and we have things like, okay, chain link fence. So this symbol, when we see it in the plans, is going to mean chain link fence. Here we have a water service. Here we can see lighter lines. Those are existing. They're already in the ground when the project starts. The darker lines are the proposed. So we can see sanitary sewer service, underground power, and they're labeled by UGP light or dark, depending on what was already there. We got a whole slew of different things to take note. Our symbols to tell you the different sections and page numbers and how you find those things. So that's sheet 1. Sheet 2 kind of just gives you a real general idea of what's coming. This is a bird's eye view of the entire plant, of the proposed plant. We have, this is Montana Avenue, so this is a street coming in, and then here's driveway loops and parking, and then here's a sewer treatment facility with the various buildings. Here's just a larger overview of how it sits in the neighborhood, and then here's one with it imposed over a satellite image. Now we start getting into sections for a more close-up detail. So these are road, or actually this is a profile of the water main. So you're looking at this not as a bird's eye view, but from straight horizontally across to see how it goes down and comes up and around. And we're coming in on the road here. Let's just go over to starting to get into the road sections of how you build the road that's going in there. Now here's one section. The plant is over here, so it's just showing the road going into the driveway section. And then the road is labeled by station marks. So if we take a look at this 16 plus 00, and let's take a look at what, if we take a cross section, we're looking at that from the top down. If we take a cross section, like you cut a piece of cake and you look at the center of the cake, let's see what that looks like. So we turn the pages until we come up to detail 16 plus 00. Here's where it shows our road profile now. We can show what they want, the darker lines, what they want the finish grade to be, 3:1 maximum, 2% minimum, typical. The road widths, the crown, 2%, and this dotted line is existing grade. So this is the cutting and filling that we would have to do to what is their native beforehand to what it would now look like once the road is built. So these are pages upon pages, and a good set of construction drawings is what these are, what a contractor has. As you can see, they're frayed and used and marked on, because we have to do our as-built. Once we actually put things in the ground, sometimes they might not be exactly, we might have to move something over 12 inches or something if we're doing site work or civil work. So that's what all these markings are for, are our notes after we installed everything, so that we can come back to this, give this to the engineers, and they can update the final plans when the project is done that shows actually where everything ended up on the plan. But this is a pretty big project, pretty complicated. Like I say, a lot of sheets and a lot of detail. And since most of you have never seen the water treatment plant, especially the before, during, or after, we'll switch gears here to something on a project that's maybe a little more simplified that we can kind of dig into, and it'll be something that you guys are familiar with. All right, we're going to get going here on a little bit smaller project that most of you are a little more familiar with, and that is the Dawson County High School concession stand project that I designed, drew, and constructed for the Glendive High School. As you notice, these plans, we kind of designed them to fit on a 11 by 17 piece of paper that was easier to print and hand out to various contractors and people that wanted to see the plans. As we move on to that, I also just want to go back to the wastewater treatment plans that are 195 pages. That doesn't include the project manuals that are a couple inches thick in themselves, that are chock full of all kinds of technical information and details about specific products and assembly procedures and things like that. So what we're going to be moving on to is a little bit simpler than that. Now, plans, blueprints, diagrams, drawings, they're all instructions on how to build something. Depending on the complexity of the project, they can be very detailed, or the detail can be only on certain elements that need to be have more explanation to them. As we take a look at the Dawson County High School concession stand plans, we can see that they're not near as complicated as the sewer treatment plant that we were looking at earlier. There's only 11 sheets here that are 11 by 17. Even though there's not as much on here, we have all the information that we need. So with that information, we have a view of each side of the building, and that would be called elevation. So we have our east elevation, we have our south elevation, west elevation, north elevation. So that's all four sides. And then if we look at a bird's eye view straight down on it, we have the footing, foundation, floor plan. And then we also have our upper floor plan. And if we look at deeper into these, basically with the simple layout of this building, we just need measurements. Corner of the building to corner of the building, 46 feet. And that shows that from that outside edge. Within there, we have the window spacing, we have door spacing, everything is ADA handicap accessible. We have an ADA ramp here. We can see what our stalls in the bathroom are. So basically, with this building and all the 90-degree perpendicular walls, it's just a matter of spacing. And so we have all of our measurements within each room. We have inside the measurements. You can see when the hash goes through that line, that means it's measuring from the inside of that wall to the inside of that wall. Other measurements that are showing, so that slash and that slash is showing that that's an 8-inch thick wall. So we have all of our measurements on all these views, whether it's the floor plan or the elevations. And that is the most important thing for this construction as far as just the contractor building things. Now, where we get into needing a little more information, a little more detail, is on the structural side of things. So everything, else that's decorative is pretty straightforward, going with a particular red metal roofing product and the fascia soffit. So we know what CMU block we're using, railings. So what in here do we need more information on? Okay, this is our south elevation again, and this is showing the end cross section of our retaining wall right here. Well, we know that it has, I have stated on here, 3 foot over X. That's over excavation. We dug it 3 feet down before we poured our foundation and floor with geotech and structural fill. We also see here that it says retaining wall, see structural. If we see this note, and we have our basic measurements on here and how far to overdig, how wide our overdigs are, but we also know that we need more information. So let's go down and see if we can find the structural detail. So here we have structural notes from the structural engineer. So all the structural elements on this building meet code requirements for building permits and everything else, everything from wood framing, materials, structural steel, masonry, and we get into foundations. So this is the notes. All the information on here is referring to something. So if we see the foundations, and that's what we were looking at up on the sheet above, we also see that there has been some other design based on information provided by Rimrock Engineering. Rimrock Engineering is a geotechnical engineering firm that we had do engineering on the subsoil based underneath of the building. When we take a look at the structural engineers sheets, and we have the same footing layout that I have in my sheets in the architectural section, but now he's got added notes to that. So this is the retaining wall coming out here, and he's got additional measurements that pertain to the structural engineering side of things. So he's got 3 S101. So S is for structural. That's what we're looking at. So this is a structural detail that he's calling out. It goes through this wall. This line goes through that wall. So that means it's a cross-section detail view of this retaining wall. Let's go see if we can find 3 S101. And if we come down here, we have 1 S101, 2, and here we have 3. So here it's showing exactly how to build that retaining wall in more detail. So it's showing how thick the slab is. Again, it's just showing our measurements. It's showing what rebar we put in and what spacing to put the rebar in. So these retaining walls and the walls of the basement of the building are really stout. They have a double vertical stack of rebar, and every 18 inches there's number 4 horizontal rebar. So there's a lot of rebar in those walls, and then how it ties into the footing and how this piece of rebar comes over and this one comes over. It's tied into this footing, so we were able to get a lot of strength out of this wall without having to do a super deep foundation. With this, it's just measurements. Everything is showing you measurements. So here for our subsoil, and this is referring to all 3 of these details, is the geotechnical report from Rimrock Engineering. And we'll take a look at that now. So here we're taking a look at the Rimrock Engineering geotechnical report. We can go down here and see their credentials. Rimrock Engineering specializes in geotechnical engineering. They don't really do any other kind of civil or structural engineering. It's just strictly geotechnical. So we had them come out. They did core samples and boring of the soil underneath where we were going to put the concession stand. With that, they give you a report. It's about 25 pages long. Field exploration, laboratory testing, site conditions, and now here's where we get into their recommendations. So geotechnical concerns and considerations, earthwork, compaction requirements, everything that we need to know on how to prep the subsurface and get ready for a foundation. They also give their input on the foundation design for the type of soils that it's sitting on. And this is really important, and this should be done on any commercial building. I would even do it on any residential building you're going to build. It just you can't have a solid foundation unless it's on a solid foundation. If we go down here to their recommendations, we'll see that excavation should allow the placement of at least 3 feet structural fill beneath the footings on a uniform elevation. We also see that we have separation stabilization geotextile. That gives a separation between the imported structural fill and the native dirt that's there. So with that 3-foot over X, we now have a solid structural bridge that building is sitting on. Makes it incredibly solid. So now that we've studied the plans, let's swing over to the concession stand and take a look and see how the plans translated into the finished product. Well, I think that wraps up this video on the very basics of reading construction plans and how they tie into an actual construction project. And I hope you got a little something out of it. We'll see you later.